All right. Now we're on track. All right, let's go. This summer, I was fortunate enough to be the biology teacher of 18 ninth grade students. Now, as a music major, when I learned this, I was absolutely terrified because, as you can guess, music and biology have very, very, very little in common. But I decided that I was going to rise to the occasion. I was going to rise to the occasion and do my job correctly. I had all the responsibilities of a normal teacher when I had this job. I stood in front of the classroom when I lectured. I made sure that my students were actively participating every day. I handed out homework assignments. I took them up. I graded them. I went to the teacher's lounge and microwaved my food every day for lunch. And most importantly, I answered a lot of questions. Now, once again, bringing it back to the music and the biology, Google became my best friend. And you also have to keep in mind that these were ninth graders, so I also had to Google who One Direction was and what the word they meant. The main culprit of asking all of these questions is this kid, Ethan. That smug look on his face when he got me on a question I could not answer. Little rascal. Ethan did not fail to ask me 2 or 3 questions every day in class. And one day, Ethan raised his hand and he asked me what I believe to be the most important question any of us have ever asked in our education system. Ethan raised his hand and he asked me, why do we need to learn this? Think about that for a second. Why do we need to learn anything? Why did Ethan need to learn cell division that day? I know everybody in here has asked this at some point. You've gone into your geometry class and thought to yourself, why do I need to learn this? I'm never going to need to know the area of a sphere. As I went home that day, I reflected. I really thought about, thinking about how I can teach better. This moment popped up in my mind. Because when Ethan asked me that question, I answered with, it's going to be on your test, and then I moved on. I think that that's what most teachers answer with. I can't be positive. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that what I told Ethan wasn't necessarily a lie, but it most certainly was not the whole truth. Because if I were to tell Ethan the truth, I would try to tell him about a vicious cycle that we all find ourselves caught in. A vicious cycle of academic regurgitation for pieces of paper and, in turn, instant gratification. Because if I were to really answer Ethan's question, I would have told him, well, Ethan, you're going to memorize this fact, and I'm going to hand you this piece of paper called a test. And you're going to answer the question on the test. You're going to give it back to me, I'm going to grade it, I'll give it back to you, and you're going to make a good grade. And you're going to feel pretty good about yourself. But then, you're going to continue to do this for 4 more years of high school. 4 whole years. Until one day you get another piece of paper that says, congratulations, you graduated high school. And you're going to feel pretty good. And you might do so well that you'll get another piece of paper in the mail that says, you can go to college. In fact, you may get several pieces of paper that say, you can go to college. And I'll tell you what, that feels pretty good. You might go to one of these universities, one of these colleges, and continue this cycle of academic regurgitation for pieces of paper, and in return, instant gratification for 4 more years. 4 more. Until you get that extra piece of paper that says, you've graduated college. And you're going to use that piece of paper to get a job. And you might go in every day doing the same thing over and over and over again. You know what you're supposed to do, you do it. 9 to 5, every day in the same place. And you're going to do all of this for little brain pieces of paper to in turn buy products and feel pretty good. And you're going to do this every day until you die. Now that's a mouthful and a lot to put on a 9th grader, so I'm glad I didn't say it. But it's good to think about it. Why don't we say these things? Why don't we warn our students about the cycle we're trapping them in? But if it's a warning that we'd be giving, that means that this cycle is not the answer to the question. It is instead a situation we put ourselves in. And if it's a situation, that means that there's a different answer to that question. Why do we need to learn this? I thought very hard about this, and I asked about this with many of my colleagues. And we decided that the real answer was that you don't have to. You don't have to. In fact, you're not going to unless you want to. Every time that you stood in your class and you thought, this is dumb, I'm not going to learn this, I'm never going to use this, guess what? You didn't learn it. You may have memorized it, you may have put it on a test in order to get a good grade, but you didn't learn it. So my answer to the question, why do we need to learn this, is that you don't have to, but you should want to. Most people think about this answer and see this cycle and say, well, then we need to change the education system. And to that, I wholeheartedly agree. But I believe we can take it one step further. It is known, it may not be well known, but it is known that the education system that we have in place today was put there due to the Industrial Revolution. As we created more and more products, we decided that we needed more factory workers and more consumers. And so we created a system that made us mindless factory workers and mindless consumers. So I argue that if our society put in place this education system, why can't we change the society again and do the same thing, but for a better cause? So I propose 3 things that we do in our everyday lives, new cornerstones to put with every action that we do. The first is for us to strive to have a passion for learning instead of just memorizing facts. This is the most simple of the 3. It's saying you should want to learn. You should go into your classroom every day with an open mind and say, I'm going to learn this. I don't know why I'll need it necessarily, but I'm going to learn this. The second is for us to apply our knowledge that we are so happy to learn, to create something new instead of just sticking with what is old. Basically what this is saying is use your creativity in a nutshell. And one of my biggest pet peeves is when people think that they're not creative. Just because you don't play an instrument, you can't sing, you don't dance, you can't create masterpieces with paint, doesn't mean that you're not creative. Every time we've taken a step forward in human history, somebody has been creative to do so. Albert Einstein did not find the theory of relativity in his textbook. Instead, he took all the knowledge that he has learned and he applied it to create something new. Now, when we apply this knowledge and create something new, I say that we should work for pieces of humanity instead of for pieces of paper. I believe that every job and every career has 2 parts. The job itself and the benefits of that job, the personal benefits for you. We tend to focus on the personal benefits. We focus on the salary. We focus on the vacation days. We focus on anything else that would be beneficial for us. But I believe that we need to focus more on the job itself. Because that job ties directly into everybody else around you. Imagine a world where everybody who decided to be a doctor did it so he could make people feel better instead of for the salary that he gets. Imagine if every single politician that ran for office did it to make the lives of their citizens better rather than for the fame and for the power. Imagine if every teacher became a teacher to empower students instead of for the weekends and the summers off. Imagine a world where that happens. Now, I charge everybody here today to live by these three things. Next time you sit in your classroom, have an open mind, want to learn something. Next time your friend really wants to tell you something that they learned, listen, absorb it. Never resist your creative urges. Create something new into this world. I cannot tell you how to do that. Everybody here is going to create something different. I'm going to create something different than you do. That's the way it happens. But when we do that, we make the world a more beautiful place. And when you create that something new, do it to help others. Don't do it for yourself. Because if we are going to disrupt the cycle of academic regurgitation for pieces of paper, and in turn, instant gratification, it starts here, and it starts with you. So change the cycle. Disrupt that cycle. Because everybody in here is a world changer. Thank you.